Skol Vikings, let's win this game. Skol Vikings, honor your name. Go get that first down, then get a touchdown. Rock 'em, sock 'em, fight, 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 fight.
Attention fans. The pressure around the Vikings quarterback room just got turned up another notch. At the same time, Brian Flores appears to be experimenting with a potential new weapon on defense, while a fresh controversy involving J.J. McCarthy is starting to gain traction. And if that wasn't enough, Justin Jefferson's name is now being used as the standard for one of the division's newest stars. For a team with playoff expectations, that's a lot to unpack before the season even gets here. There's one phrase that has caught a lot of attention lately: the idea that the Vikings are somehow sitting in a situation where they simply can't lose. And when you look at the quarterback competition between J.J. McCarthy and Kyler Murray, you start to understand why. Mike Florio didn't hold back when discussing Minnesota's current situation. In his eyes, the Vikings are protected no matter how this plays out. If McCarthy finally develops into the player the organization believed he could become, that's a win. But if he struggles and Kyler Murray takes control of the offense, that's also a win. Honestly, it's hard to completely argue against that logic. What makes this even more fascinating is that this doesn't feel like a mentor-student relationship. There's no sense that Murray was brought in to guide the younger quarterback. He was brought here to compete. He arrived in Minnesota with something to prove. After being released by Arizona, he wants to show the entire NFL that he can still be a franchise quarterback. On the other side stands McCarthy, a young player who knows this may be the most important stretch of his football career so far. Chris Sims also pointed out something many fans have probably already considered. It can't be easy for McCarthy to look across the room every day and see a former #1 overall pick competing for the exact same job. That affects confidence. It affects emotions. It affects the entire dynamic of the quarterback room. Every rep suddenly means a little more. And maybe that's exactly what Kevin O'Connell wanted: real competition, real pressure, because great quarterbacks often emerge when there's no comfort zone left to hide behind. What's most intriguing is that we're talking about a roster that already looks capable of competing right now. This isn't a rebuilding team. This is a team that believes it can win immediately. That's why every practice, every throw, and every decision carries extra weight. The margin for error feels smaller, and the deeper this competition goes, the harder it becomes to predict who will be under center in Week 1. While most of the attention remains focused on the quarterbacks, another fascinating development may be taking place behind the scenes on defense. After the departure of Jonathan Greenard, many fans understandably became concerned about the team's pass rush depth. Losing a productive edge defender is never easy. Brian Flores, however, may already be searching for an answer. During OTAs, observers noticed something interesting. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins appeared slimmer and was working alongside the edge rushers. That might sound like a small offseason detail, but it could carry real significance. Within Flores' defensive system, versatility often creates opportunity. Last season, Ingram-Dawkins primarily contributed as a rotational defensive lineman. Now there's growing belief that Minnesota could be preparing him for a larger role on the edge. And if there's one coach who loves creative solutions, it's Brian Flores. He values flexibility. He embraces unpredictability. He looks for ways to pressure opposing quarterbacks from angles they aren't expecting. If Ingram-Dawkins successfully transitions into that role, the Vikings may have quietly uncovered an important piece of their defensive future without making another major acquisition. That's the kind of development that can change a depth chart faster than people expect. At the same time, another storyline involving Kyler Murray is beginning to gain momentum. Some analysts are already naming him one of the top candidates for Comeback Player of the Year. That alone tells you how much talent people still believe he possesses. Of course, he first has to win the quarterback battle. But imagining Murray operating Kevin O'Connell's offense while throwing to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson is enough to make people around the league take notice. You can understand why the conversation is growing. And if that comeback story actually happens, Minnesota may end up talking about goals much bigger than individual awards. Now let's get to a story that has sparked plenty of debate among Vikings fans over the last few days. And it all started with a simple question during OTAs. When Kyler Murray was asked about his relationship with J.J. McCarthy, his answer was friendly and supportive. He talked about sharing knowledge and helping a younger player whenever possible. It sounded exactly like the type of response you'd expect from a veteran quarterback. McCarthy's response, however, landed a little differently. He described the situation as two players sitting on opposite sides of a classroom and emphasized that coaching is the responsibility of the coaches. It wasn't hostile, it wasn't disrespectful, but it certainly wasn't warm either. That's when former Cowboys quarterback Ben DiNucci publicly criticized McCarthy, suggesting that kind of attitude doesn't work for someone playing the quarterback position in the NFL. Personally, I think some people may be reading too much into it. We're talking about a young quarterback dealing with enormous pressure. Every word gets analyzed. Every answer becomes a headline. That's the reality of the position. Still, it's understandable why some observers raise their eyebrows. Quarterbacks are often expected to project leadership, unity, and diplomacy even during direct competitions. Maybe McCarthy was simply being honest. Maybe he wasn't interested in pretending this is anything other than a battle for the starting job. Or maybe this is just part of the learning process for a young player adjusting to life under the NFL spotlight. Whatever the case may be, it adds another layer of intrigue to an already fascinating quarterback competition. Because in this league, perceptions can change very quickly once the games begin. And once training camp ramps up, every interaction between those two quarterbacks will probably receive even more attention. And finally, there's a comparison coming out of Chicago that is guaranteed to grab the attention of Vikings fans. Some voices around the Bears are beginning to suggest that rookie wide receiver Luther Burden III could become their version of Justin Jefferson. Just hearing that comparison tells you how high expectations are for the young playmaker. But let's be honest, comparing anyone to Justin Jefferson is setting an incredibly high bar. Jefferson remains one of the most gifted receivers in football. Despite dealing with instability at quarterback over the years, he continues to produce at an elite level. Still, the comparison reveals how highly some people think of Burden's explosiveness and playmaking ability. Whether he reaches that level is another conversation entirely. Fortunately, Minnesota's defense will get a first-hand look when these division rivals meet. But another important storyline involving Jefferson continues to develop. Throughout the offseason, Jefferson has spent significant time building chemistry with J.J. McCarthy. According to McCarthy, the two have been working extensively on timing, rhythm, and understanding the finer details of the passing game. That matters. It matters a lot, because regardless of who wins the quarterback competition, the Vikings' offense will continue to revolve around number 18. There's also the arrival of Jawan Jennings, who brings toughness, experience, and another weapon to the receiving corps. Adding Jennings alongside Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and T.J. Hawkinson gives Minnesota a group that can challenge defenses in multiple ways. The talent is clearly there. The weapons are clearly there. The next step is putting all the pieces together. The only question that remains is who will ultimately be delivering the football when the season kicks off. That's what makes this stage of the offseason feel so important. We're not just watching practices. We're watching the foundation of the 2026 season being built in real time. There's excitement, there's pressure, and there's that familiar mixture of hope and uncertainty that every Vikings fan knows all too well. Every update seems to raise a new question, and that's part of what makes this team so fascinating right now. Now I want to hear from you. Which storyline stands out the most? The quarterback battle, Brian Flores' defensive plans, the controversy surrounding McCarthy's comments, or the continued development of the offense around Justin Jefferson? Vikings Nation will be watching every step of the journey, and we'll be right here experiencing it together. Stay tuned. Skol Vikings, let's go!